Okay, let me invite a moderator for this session. Please welcome Renee, serial entrepreneur. And Adriana Gascoigne, founder and CEO of Girls in Tech. And Ms. Jane Xu, director of InnoVEX Center, NTU. Noah Lifshitz, CEO of Noah's Mark. Amanda Xu, co-founder Women in IoT. Kelly Liao, co-founder of KuoBrothers. Stephanie Tang, managing director of Rookie Fund. Last but not least, Jinger Zeng, ARM innovator and business development specialist of Auterion. Ladies?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I see a few gentlemen here. I want to applaud you for your instinct to find the most powerful, smartest, most savvy women in the same corner here. So let us just applaud for the very few gentlemen and boys here. And it gives me great pleasure and privilege to introduce to you this amazing panel. I cannot be more excited about this opportunity to moderate the panel discussion. We just heard from Kelly and Adriana, so I would like to ask other panelists to first briefly introduce yourself and maybe say a few words about your female entrepreneurship journey or your experiences. Jane, would you like to start?
Hi, I'm Jane Su, and I'm with National Taiwan University. So I guess I'm the only non-business person in this panel. And I've been working in artificial intelligence and Internet of Things for the past many years. So I'm really happy to have this opportunity to be here today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Noah. I came here from Israel, so thank you for having me. I'm a consultant. I work with tech-driven companies on their fundraising, their marketing, and their salesmanship, and basically help companies in Asia communicate better with Western audiences.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amanda, and I'm really happy to be here on behalf of Women in IoT. And Women in IoT is a community. So our goal is to bring women in IoT industry to connect, to share, and inspire. And we also have two other co-founders here today, Claire and Mandy. And so besides Women in IoT, I also run a product studio called Shape Prototype. And the story behind is, the past few years, I was working as a project manager and for the Fortune 500 companies. And the projects that we organize are all like really mature kind of product, hardware, IoT sort of projects. And during this time, I also found out that there are a lot of startups or individuals that actually also want to bring their product to life. And so that's why I want to start. I started this studio and this department that focusing on just for small to medium business and also startups to bring this product together and then to bring their dreams come true.
Hi guys, I'm Steph. So nice to be here today. So I'm managing director of Rookie Fund, and we're a student-run venture fund that invests also in student startups. We currently operate out of Taiwan and Xiamen. And I'm really happy to be here. I recently was an honoree of the Forbes 2018 in the VC and finance category. So happy to share that with you guys in a bit.
Hi everyone, my name is Jinger. I currently live in mainland China. I actually was the founder of a drone hardware and software company in the United States. And then so my background really is kind of like cross-culture, like biculture, being a female founder in the drone industry, like in both like United States. And actually right now I work for a Swiss startup as a business development person. So kind of working on like a global platform, a super sophisticated like software project in a very exciting like new frontier technology and industry. That's kind of my background. And just a little fun fact, actually, I'm a mechanical engineer by training. that turned into an entrepreneur. And actually, my technical background was actually in solar and renewable energy rather than in drones. So a lot of journey I actually went through as a woman entrepreneur, and I'd love to share that story with everyone.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy that you talked about cultures. We have a wide variety here. Everyone has different background, experiences, expertise. So my first question is, in your culture, is there anything specific that encourages or discourages women from becoming entrepreneurs? Would you like to start?
Sure. So I come from a big, very diverse group of people in my life and different types of influences. My mother is Mexican, half Mexican, Japanese, born and raised in Mexico City. And my father is French, German, but American born. So it's an amalgamation of really interesting, diverse cultures that each see entrepreneurship in different ways. But I am 100% American. And in the United States, it's very supported to be involved in the tech ecosystem and to be an entrepreneur and to achieve your dreams. So at a young age, we're really taught to focus on building our confidence, and there's a little ways to go in terms of leveling the playing field for both women and men. But I think it's definitely really strong in the United States in terms of abilities to access certain resources and encouragement from parents and teachers for women to enter into the tech field and also to launch their own companies. So I don't think that I experienced any issues in that front, but I would say in Japan, for instance, my cousins that are women aren't encouraged to essentially go out and start their own companies. Rather, they're encouraged to stick with large corporations and become an employee at a large corporation, or get married off and have kids. So there's a really difference in cultures, and it's also dependent on the parents and how they raise their kids. But I think being raised in the United States, I never had an issue with that.
Hi, I grew up in Taiwan, and I spent a few years in the United States, when I did my PhD. And I think in terms of the experience being in a culture, it's a relatively simple compared with Adriana. But on the other hand, when I was growing up, I had always been interested in something that's like mechanical, electrical things, and I was interested in math and sciences. But then I never felt that it's not a women's thing. That's something I just gravitate toward naturally. Only until I went into high school, I realized that the school actually had an exam to select students that will eventually major in science and engineering. Out of maybe we have 20 plus classes of students, and they only allow 2 classes of students to major in engineering. So at the time, I never realized it was a kind of a bias from the adults, maybe. But on the other hand, being a professor in Taiwan for over 20 years, I work with students of both female and male. I can definitely tell you that there is no difference in terms of capability in learning things technical in science and engineering. In fact, most of my best students have been female. And so the only thing I realized that is really in how we overcome the cultural expectation of what we can be, what we can become. So maybe my initial ignorance about the bias was helpful because I wasn't afraid to enter the field. So to some extent, try to go with whatever you like and be yourself.
Thank you very much. I am sure you have a lot to say about not classifying people by their gender. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. I have a lot to say about a lot of things. That's part of the Israeli culture. We're very opinionated. Israeli culture is unique because it is, for a start, very diverse. Israel is a very young country. We came to it from many different countries. So there are many different populations. For women, Israel is unique because the women also serve in the military. So same as Taiwan, which only recruits males. In Israel, we recruit both boys and girls. So we are a little bit more assertive. But I think globally there's a problem with how we educate women from a very early age. So the problem doesn't just start when we go to university and when we enter the workforce. The problem starts when we're toddlers, really, and they teach us to be polite and to connect with other people on an emotional level and strive to perfection. That was a huge setback for me when I started my business, is that I always wanted to be perfect. I felt like I always had to be perfect. And I think a lot of women feel that way. And entrepreneurship is probably the best thing that has ever happened to me, because it taught me not to strive for perfection, but rather for excellence in what I do. And without being an entrepreneur, I would never have figured that out.
That's really well said. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think compared to other Asian countries, I think in Taiwan is quite okay for female entrepreneurship. But I think we still heard a lot of like friends or people talking about, as a female, like your parents or your family expect you to be, having a stable job and just having a family life at a certain stage. And I think as a female entrepreneur, the challenge is we always have challenges during different periods of our lives. It's just really the fact that we just take it and then we face it and then we try everything we can. And I think another thing is important is family education, really, because I think if the family can foster entrepreneurship, like when they were small, when they were young, and even as a daughter, as a female, when you grow up, you wouldn't feel so uncomfortable to being a female entrepreneur. And I think that's definitely something that we can more think about, apart from like education in terms of school, like how we can really have impact on family education in terms of these subjects.
I'm sure you have a lot to say too, because she just mentioned family, and then you were talking about family and marriage and being a mom. So what do you think?
Okay, I think in Chinese culture, we women are taught to be silent, are taught to be stay at home, are taught to be listening to your husband, and are taught to obey the rules. I think under this culture, under this environment, it's really difficult for we women to have sense of self-worth. And so I want to encourage all of you that many of women, including myself, have confidence issue. In the very beginning of when I started the company, as a founder, I need to make a lot of decisions every day. However, I usually doubt my own decision. I found I don't have enough confidence of myself. And not only me. Now, in my company, we are female members, we are male members. I found something is interesting. Even if female have the same level of education, have the same level of working experience, have the same level of ability. But usually the female members will feel that they are not as good as enough as male members. For example, sometimes we have opportunity to promote members. When I talk to a male member and I told him that Thank you for your contribution. We would like to promote you as a manager, and the male members will say yes, and they will agree immediately, and they are happy to take this advantage, this challenge. But if I talk to female members, I say, I would like to promote you as a leader. But the female members usually react in a total different way. They will hesitate, and they will ask a lot of questions, and I will answer a lot of questions. I explain many details. After I explain all the details and encourage her, she still say, would you please ask me if I can give her 1 to 2 weeks to consider? I think this is not because this female member is not have the ability to be a leader. It is not because this female member is not as good as the other male candidate. It is because that we usually don't have enough confidence of ourselves. So I want to encourage all of you, no matter as a woman or as a female leader or as a female team member, we have to believe that we are as good as males. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, that is really insightful. And then maybe we can talk more about how to empower women in the workplace later. And let's hear from Steph first. I know the Rookie Fund is reaching out to campuses, so I am sure that you have this exposure to college students. What do you think of these female college students? Do they have a very different view about the workplace, or do they have a very different view about their possibilities and potential?
So I want to answer the last question and also this question very succinctly. 3 little stories to share. So the first one is, I remember I was born in America, but I grew up predominantly in Hong Kong and Taiwan. I went to middle school and high school in Taiwan. So kind of a mix of cultures there. But I remember thinking, you know, there are people like Wonder Woman. America is very all about equality, and you have that in your mind. But Asia is a little different. Not that America doesn't have its problems, right? But I remember going to middle school in Taiwan and wanting to play basketball. And the basketball club turned out to only have male members. So you could sign up and say, I want to do basketball, but you wouldn't get in. So why even let girls sign up in the first place if there was no space for them? All 50 members were male. And I went to our jiaoguan and I was like, hey, this is kind of unfair. What's going on? He said, well, you know, most of the people who signed up were guys. So we're just going to let guys play guys because you can't play guys, right? So what I ended up doing was, like, I actually found someone in my class. I'm not proud of this, but I bullied him into switching with me, and then made my way into the basketball club and played my ass off, right? That is the culture here. It was like that 13, 14 years ago. And now they have a women's basketball club, a girls' basketball club. So things are changing. But that, I think, influences your mentality when you're growing up, because it's like, I don't have the same types of opportunities even for extracurricular activities. How am I going to do something that's so risky? The second quick story is this year, so we have a lot of mentors we work with, and I'm really grateful for their help to all of our student investors. But one mentor actually works for a huge, huge Asian fund, and she was a woman, she was sharing with us their investment philosophy. I won't tell you what this fund is because I don't want to get them in trouble, but the male founder of the fund, the partner, had red flags that we needed to look at. These are things to be aware of if the team has any of these qualities. Guess what? Well, one of them was like, if they have a foreign founder in Asia, they won't know the culture well enough, et cetera, et cetera. And then down the list, one of them was, if the founder is a female, this is a red flag. And we were just like, what? But out of respect for her, we didn't say anything during the session. It's just, how is this happening in 2018? These are still, actual things they have to abide by when they're evaluating teams. Third little story, and to touch on the student part, was we looked at well over 50 teams this year, and out of all the teams that came in to pitch to us, we had one female founder. All the rest were men. And I guess for her team, she's CEO, CTO, and Chief Product Officer were also guys. So I feel like this statistic kind of speaks for itself. I think in Taiwan right now, they're propagating a lot of movements to try to encourage girls to take action, like what Girls in Tech is doing, or a lot of professors are also aware of the gender imbalance, but you still haven't seen the results of it, right? We haven't seen girls being super, super successful, especially in startups that are not makeup related, that are not like mother industries, you know, like stuff for your kids. Like these are the industries that women are excelling in, but not otherwise. So I think there's still quite a bit of catching up to do in Taiwan.
Thank you. And Jinger?
Yeah, so I remember when I was growing up, and I grew up in mainland China from Chengdu. And so I remember like growing up when girls, like you're considered good if you're like conform, you're like very disciplined, very like 听话. But for and you know you get a lot of praises from other adults and stuff. But for boys it's a little bit different. Like they would be considered like they have like high IQ if they're like more rebellious, or like have a lot of energy and like smart and stuff like that. And I never realized this until actually I grew up, but I think I always actually wanted to be a boy because I was like kind of rebellious and in a lot of different ways. And so when I was growing up, like the main all the adults around me were like, you're not a very like 听话 girl, so I got into a lot of troubles, and that actually got even worse after when I got into high school, because then I joined like a rock band. I joined a rock band and started dyeing my hair and start playing bass and stuff like that. So now like all the adults think I'm like really in this like trouble. Being different, being non-conformed to just traditional like whatever like girls supposed to do, and hanging out with a lot of boys because at the time most of the underground like rock band people are like boys, so eventually that actually really pushed me in going to the United States. So I ended up studying like mechanical engineering. And after that, I started a startup with one of my buddy doing things in drones. So I'm always like this kind of girl that's doing like boy stuff. So like my personal journey is like that. And I remember being like I really actually hated girly stuff and being involved with any just like female only either like organization or stuff like that. When I was in engineering school, I actually joined almost every society besides the Society for Women Engineers. So but then something like something happened to me after I becoming CEO of my company and I was running my company. I ended up joining an accelerator in Silicon Valley called Women's Startup Lab. It was an experience for me that I actually only hang out with like female founders, and it was actually a life-changing experience for me, because it's actually the first time I ever opened up to the whole woman subject, and I'm feeling like really supported like organically and naturally, as a female, instead of kind of this whole rebellious things that's against it. So so then, it gives me this kind of whole new consciousness about like sexuality, about like the true difference between female and male. And I think because my path has always been, I want to be more like male, and it's actually the really right way to develop to develop myself on a personal level and on a professional level, and I start like exploring that like philosophically. So, and then to talking about like the culture stuff, definitely then because I then later like moved back to China, and then after Unite end up finishing like my company in United States. So that was actually a culture shock for me after I moved back to mainland China. Because after you're like exposed to all these openness, you know, to female entrepreneurship, and the experience I had after I moved back to mainland China was still very like male dominated. Still very male dominated. Like most of like especially like the tech panels or a lot of like summits in tech are still all the speakers like will be male, and if you actually push the subject, it's like why is there no female, and people will look at you like really weird, like in a very weird lens. So all of those were like a culture shock to me, and I see that there's a gap across like different cultures. There's another experience, another story I can share with everyone. I was on a plane, I forgot where, but I was sitting actually next to a Middle Eastern, somebody from I think Saudi Arabia or like Dubai, and this guy, I think he belonged to some like the royal family or like a really wealthy family, like his family owns, it's like in the oil industry. So he asked me what I do, and I'm like, you know, I'm the CEO of a drone software company, and he was like in shock. He was like in shock. He's like, well, is your family like really rich? And like it couldn't like go through his logic on how I could be a female entrepreneur. But then I was telling him that it's actually quite easy. You know, if you just, you know, for me, I just did it out of college because I wanted to do it. I figured out ways to do it. I competed in business competition, you know, raised seed money, you know, from like Silicon Valley, all those kind of steps. But for him and his culture, it was like very shocking. So definitely, I think across the globe, there's, you know, it's a full spectrum of this whole subject.
Thank you very much. I could relate to many parts of your stories, especially the part about starting your own startup. When I started my own businesses, many people suspected that I am from a rich family too. It's like, oh, you must be really privileged and you don't want to work for other people. You don't want to be bossed around, so you want to be your own boss, but that's not true. So my next question is about empowering women, because as many of you talked about, obviously, Kelly inspired me to ask this question. You said that you wanted to promote your female colleagues, but they were very hesitant about it. So after so many years in your businesses, have you come up with different ways to motivate your female colleagues or to empower them? I don't think we need to answer this like one by one in a sequence. So maybe Kelly, you want to go first, and then whoever wants to continue this discussion, just feel free to raise your microphone.
Okay. My own experience in my first start company, actually, just like I share with you, my first company is doing location-based social working website service. And our chief technology officer, which is the head of engineer team, is a girl. Yeah. And our leader of product team who responsible for the website design or UI, user experience, etc., is also a female. The reason is not why they are all all female. The reason is not I especially wanted to hire females. It is because I see the potential of them. And I encourage all of you, if you are running a startup, you have to see the potential of your female members. Take my self-business, for example. We are running online shopping, so over half of our customers are females. So it's very important to have enough female members in each team, such as in engineering team, in sales team, in marketing, in product team. And it will help us understand more of our customer. And I want to encourage all of you, when you are running a startup, it's really very important to have female members or female founders in your startup company. Because there are a lot of advantage of we females. So I think you can benefit from it if you are willing to hire more female members.
I think for women, the most important thing I want to say, and women hear me now, just stop giving a fuck. Stop listening to what your parents are saying, your friends are saying, your coworkers are saying. Do what makes you happy. Do what you feel will fulfill you and your potential and your goals and your life. You want to have kids? Have kids. You don't want to have kids? Don't have kids. You want a glorious career where you work 16-hour days? Fucking do it. If you don't, don't. The most important thing is your life is your own. It doesn't belong to anybody else. So why are we paying so much attention to what other people have to say or think? It has no real value in reality. You can call me fat and ugly and stupid. It doesn't matter because I know my worth. I know internally, and I don't need you to validate that for me. And I think I met such a wonderful group of women here today, and we have been so supportive of one another, and we've been so kind to one another, and I think part of that is because we are all self-confident. We all know our worth, and we won't take anybody else's word other than our own. And that enables us to provide an ecosystem for other women to feel the same way we do. So just live your lives on your own terms. Thank you.
Will do. I know you're ready.
Yeah. So thank you, Noah. And you know, there are many of your words resonates with me. And in particular, to me, I would have to say one thing first. This is a very unusual experience for me with a group of confident women, because typically I'm in a panel with all the other males, and I would be the only woman. Always. And I'm the only woman within my family as well. I have a husband and 2 boys, and I'm always the minority. So to me, I think one thing I realize is that I have to learn to be not afraid to be different, okay? Because whatever other people think you should be does not have to be what you believe you should be. So you do need to spend some time to work within yourself to understand your strengths, to understand your values, but don't be afraid to be different. Okay, so for example, I'm also different on this panel because I'm the only academic in this panel. And so some people may question me, you are not an entrepreneur, okay, by definition. But to me, I believe I'm an entrepreneur because entrepreneurship does not have to be in business. Entrepreneurship can happen in any organization, even within an academic, especially in a public university like ours. Very strict, a lot of rules, but I was willing, and I've been willing to take initiative to try to do things that people said it has never been done, it cannot be done, and I just try and I just push it through. So in my work right now, one of the reasons I stay in the university is trying to encourage more students, not necessarily just women, but women is the younger generation. But I do have my heart for women students a lot more, and try to encourage them to take initiative, to be a leader, and they don't have to listen, and they don't even have to listen to me. Okay, so that's what I would like to share. Oh, one more thing. When I was a graduate student at Stanford, I was the only woman playing on the basketball team on our student club, in Taiwanese student club. And I was the only woman for 5 years, but I enjoyed it a whole lot. I made
Did you get all the rebounds because they were afraid to touch you?
No, I don't get all the rebounds. I have to run faster than my male student, peers. Yeah, but it's fun. I made a lot of friends on the team, and so don't be afraid.
We do need more people in universities to drive change. I agree that entrepreneurship is about changes. And actually, I see a progress here in Taiwan. Years ago, when we were organizing events, it was difficult to find female speakers. And this year, we have so many female speakers, we don't have enough time for all of you. So I congratulate all of you, and I hope to see more changes in Taiwan. And I see that you're ready to talk. Okay.
Always ready to talk. No, I wanted to share a story because I think this is really relevant because empowerment is obviously very, very important. I see it every day in my workplace. And it actually is directly correlated or connected with confidence building. In the United States, I think we're really taught at a young age to have a lot of confidence, so we don't have an issue there. But there are many other cultures where there are phenomenally talented women, engineers, designers, product developers, but they don't have the confidence to actually go out there and build their startups. So that's something that we definitely instill. And it does go a long way. I do believe people should get what they have in their careers and in life based on merit, but I think empowerment is so crucial, and mentorship and sponsorship is so crucial to ensure that everyone has a great opportunity. The story I wanted to share is my best friend, who is a firmware engineer at Tesla. She graduated with a CS Master's from Stanford, and is extremely brilliant, extremely smart. And I remember the day before she accepted the offer, she called me up and said, 80, it's my nickname. She says, I wanted to ask you a question. I'm not an engineer, but she wanted to approach me to see what I thought. And she said, I think that I deserve this much money, but I'm really scared to ask for this salary. What if Tesla reneges on the offer that they're giving me? I'm really nervous, I'm really scared. And I said, if you're not willing to really underscore your worth and ask for that money up front, then you'll never get it. You have to go in there, guns a-blazing, just say, this is what I'm worth. This is all of the investment that I put into my career and my master's education, getting my computer science degree, which wasn't easy at Stanford. And I really believe in myself. And so you have to ask for it then, because I'm like, you're probably not going to get a raise for a year and a half. And so that's the time to do it. I'm like, not only ask for $50,000 more, but ask for more shares in the company. And she's like, you're crazy. Like, you are nuts. And I'm like, go in there and ask. And I'm like, honestly, like, it might be hard, but just try. And she got the money she asked for. So I think that phone call, just helping my best friend build her confidence and empower her and really instill the values of, like, you can do it. She was brave and courageous enough to go in there and do it in front of a panel full of men, like very experienced engineers, and she did it. Now she's very successful there. She's been there for 4 years.
Good for her. Yeah, I had some similar experiences when I was raised funding for my startup. It was very difficult for female founders to fundraise, even in Silicon Valley. And then sometimes we're not sure if our offer will be agreed upon by the potential investors. And Amanda?
I think psychologically, I think it's important for women to feel confident and to feel like they can do everything if they want to. But I think the power of community is really powerful and really significant as well. Say, girls in tech in Taiwan, they've done a lot of efforts in this. And while girls in tech focusing on more like middle university or high school sort of education level, women in IoT, on the other hand, we focus more on professional, like women in IoT industry. IoT industry is really like a long supply chain. It could be software, it could be hardware, and then in Taiwan, it's a lot of hardware companies, hardware industry. That's where Taiwanese companies well known for. So we had this community, and our three focuses is mentorship, which we think is really important, also workshop, and also cross-cultural exchange. So we had an event last month, and we are surprised that there are half of the attendees are actually male. So I think it's kind of good outcome out of it, because it's always good to have like share experiences. It doesn't need to be always women, and we encourage women to join. But it doesn't need to. I mean, men in this industry could be a lot of helpful, a lot of useful, can give a lot of useful advice as well. And I think surprisingly is like we asked if attendees were willing to attend some sort of workshop where, although they are not technical background, but if we have like some sort of like a Juno or Raspberry Pi sort of workshop, if they would love to join, they all say yes. So I think it's really good opportunity for women who probably already missed the stage of like they can become like tech people or whatever, but still if they have interest, they can still join, and we still give them the opportunity. We want to give them the chance and create the whole, like ecosystem of women in this industry and stuff like that. And that's something that we would like to do. And also we would like to also in the future to see if we will be able to give like cross-cultural sort of exchange, like we can swap the results and swap people around different worlds and to continue this journey.
Can I say something on this real quick? Oh, sorry.
Go for it.
I feel like so the advice you guys gave is so powerful, but in Asia it's so difficult to do that. And you gotta fuck it, you gotta do it. But I think the women here have to deal with an extra layer of like familial piety and sexism.
That's just an excuse, though.
No,
say something is really difficult.
I
for
hope
me,
you
is more
understand
motivation
that
to conquer it. You know?
can't discount the fact that it exists, and sometimes it's not the fact that you don't want to be courageous. It's the fact that you really love and respect your family,
Absolutely.
and you don't want to hurt them.
Absolutely.
So there are different ways to go about it, and I think
you
one
don't
of them,
have to say fuck. Okay. You can if you want to, though.
So what I was gonna say is there are 2 points I kind of want to make. One is I think it's one thing to say, we want women to feel more confidence, but it's actually, I think, a little bit subtle difference in feeling equal. And, I think feeling you are as equal, because you could feel confident, but you would still feel less than men, right? And that's a very different feeling than, and I think that's one of the challenge for a lot of women. Like, they reach a confidence level of, like, women would feel, but they would still feel less than men. So that practice from within to feel that, like, it's just another individual instead of, I'm facing a man, is something, like I want to say that probably.
I think we also need to remember that this change in our culture and society is very young. Society ran itself in a very different way for hundreds of years. And women having equal rights and women joining the workforce, it's relatively new. I think our daughters will have a way easier time than we're having right now. But I think it's important to remember that women now are having it like the best in human history. It's the best time to be a woman in human history. I think it will only improve as we march towards the future. And I think we will educate our daughters in a smarter way than we were raised. Of course, you don't have to be aggressive. I was raised by an amazing mother, a single mother, so no father in the picture. She always taught me to do my own thing, and she hasn't done anything to conform her entire life, I think. But it was still very difficult for me, and mostly I was really afraid of failure. I think for women, we take failure as something very internal. We didn't fail because these were the circumstances, and sometimes people fail, and that's okay, but we take it as a real injury to our self-esteem. I was really afraid of failure for a long time, and you need to actually strive for failure. You learn so much when you fail. The more women fail, the more we will succeed. But definitely future generations will have a way, way easier time.
That whole failure culture, or like, how to see failure, is a very, I think, distinct Western and Asian or Eastern kind of culture difference. I actually kind of spoke on the topic with in Japan, because I was also in this kind of like 5-person meetup thing with, well, not meetup thing, we were invited to meet the Crown Prince of Japan, and it was it was also around like innovation, and I was like one of the only female that picked, among like a global applicant, and to represent the innovation community. And so one thing, and he was struggling in kind of like how Japan could, like what's making their society like kind of they feel like less innovative than, let's say, a Silicon Valley culture and stuff. And one thing I talked about is the whole failure culture, like because in Asian culture, like you like failure is no good. Yeah. Whereas in the kind of like Western startup world, you learn from failures. Actually, if an entrepreneur you have failed, a couple of companies failed, like the investors want to invest in you more.
If you haven't failed, the VC won't give you the time of day, right? They want to see you've already failed in a bunch of ventures.
Right. So all those kind of, I think, go back to like there's still a culture gap, a culture difference. And talking about female, like in Western, like there was a distinct female movement, right? And whereas in Asian culture, like there were never like female movement in Japan or Korea or like China. Like it just happened, like as the society grows and time goes on.
Zeng had something to say.
Yeah, so I would like to share something as the oldest in the group. And so I have to say I probably have witnessed a lot more in terms of how women have to navigate in a very male-dominated society. And so you are very correct in saying that we are lucky in one of the best times, because I would have to say 20 years ago, women who can do professional work are expected to do work as well as the their male counterpart, and they have to do well in their family as well. If you don't get married, you are a failure. If you don't have kids, you are a failure. You have to do everything. So the superwoman phenomenon was very prevalent in, I would say, not so long ago. And so people started realizing that we need to focus on different things. And sometimes when I look at my male colleagues, I don't feel that I'm a failure, because I may be only putting in 80% of my time, and I have to spend another 60% of my time on my family. Note that I have more than 100% of my time. But my male colleagues will have their 100% time on their work, and they will have their wives and their mothers and people supporting them. And so it's not going to be a fair workplace for, I don't expect it to be fair completely for the longest time, because it's an evolution. It's not going to change overnight. But the fact that many male started having the awareness is a good thing. In the old days, I would not dare to tell my colleague that I'm sorry, I cannot join a meeting at 6 p.m. because I have to pick up my kids. But now all my male colleagues will be saying that I have to leave by 5:30 because I have to pick up my kids. So that's a tremendous change even just within the last 10, 15 years. So to me, I think one thing for female, we need to be, especially in a very male-dominated field, I realize that my network does not form naturally. You know, because all my male colleagues will naturally belong to something together. They went to the military. At the same time, they were in a particular club. So I do have to be more proactive in setting up my own network, you know, for both professionally and for my personal or emotional support. So I do have different groups of friends. I don't hang out with the same group of people. I hang out with some group at work, but I have my own personal group when I really need the, you know, the outlet. And so I think that helped me tremendously to cope with a lot of the problems at work. Yeah.
Just really quickly, I really agree with your statement on entrepreneurialism being culturally nuanced. I think that that's, as I travel the world and work with our different chapters, I mean, that's something that's very, very present. For instance, in our India chapters, I actually heard the same exact thing not too long ago, where women came up to me and told me that they are told at a young age to be quiet, not to talk that much, like literally not to talk that much, to sit there, legs crossed, you know, mouth closed. And I'm like, how is that even possible? Like, how can you actually talk about what your passions are, your dreams are, how are you going to go on an interview, how are you going to present or learn how to speak in public? You know, all of those things are extremely important. And that confidence building in entrepreneurship is a real challenge for certain areas. I personally don't think it's an excuse. I think it's a real challenge. And it's having to do with the culture. So we have to retrain the thinking and basically talk to the parents and the teachers and you know, sort of the old school mentality of how to evolve and how to empower women and how to encourage them to be entrepreneurs, how to encourage them to take risks and to fail and, you know, to pick up their bootstraps. In Iran, for example, 71% of the women are 71% of the computer science grads are women, but you don't see them in any of the companies. You don't see them taking those jobs. Why? It's culturally nuanced. A lot of their parents look down upon a job, you know, in a workplace, and they want them to get married off and have kids, right? So you don't see that. In India, there are several talented engineers, just like in different parts of Asia. And you don't see many entrepreneurs in India. So what are we going to do? Go there and empower them and teach entrepreneurial skills so that they can move forward, succeed, and make sure that they have the confidence to actually launch their startup. But it's not something that, you know, as an American, I can go in and say, like, I know everything about the cultures. It's like we have to listen and understand how they're nuanced and customize the programming based on what the needs are. And it's still a learning process. I've been doing this for 11 years, and we still have a long way to go.
So, do we still
I'm just really happy to see everyone holding their microphones, getting ready to speak.
So, it's true. I actually work with a lot of startups through accelerators and government programs, and when I give classes in Israel and they say, okay, it's Q&A time, you see everybody's raising their hands to ask a question. And then when I'm in Taiwan, at first no one raises their hand. So even if I ask the class a question, or I say, okay, now you can ask me anything you want, nobody raises their hands. But I have hope for Taiwan, because whenever I do like a little tease, the first brave participant raises their hand and asks a question, and then we get like 20, 30 more questions. So for me, my personal experience, when I started, and actually someone had suggested to me that I should become an entrepreneur. And I said, no. I am too young, I'm too inexperienced, I don't know anything. Plus, like, women in business, no one lets me speak, no one lets me finish a sentence anyway when I'm at work, so why even try? And that feeling, someone needed to beat that feeling out of me. I was very lucky to have an amazing mentor who just beat all of that shit out of me, because I was using it as an excuse to avoid failure or embarrassment, or thinking like, what if this doesn't work out? How do I show my face in public? Like I tried something and it failed. I think if we give people the right push, if we steer the conversation in the right direction and tell women, you're capable, you're amazing, you're smart, you're intelligent, rather than, I see some mentors and some people who are actually sort of using femininity as a crunch and say like, it's okay, people expect this of you, so if you don't make it, it's also not a big deal. And I don't want to do that to women. I think that's a mistake. I think we need to push women, again, not necessarily in an aggressive way, but just to make sure we're not using our own confidence issues and our own insecurities and the fact that we are women and we are identified as a class to say, like, okay, I won't give it my all. So I see that a lot with women who are using difficulties as a way to say, okay, so if it doesn't work, fine. Like, I won't do it. I don't want to see that happen.
Yeah, and I also want to kind of make a point, right? Like, I think it's also very important to evangelize men who support confident women.
Yes, men are not the enemy, right?
Yeah, exactly. They have to be on our team. And anyway, so the interesting experiment I kind of did with a whole bunch of my friends is like, I would ask them, so what kind of female you want your wife, and what kind of female you want your daughter to be, and the answers are very different, right? Like they want a really, and I'm talking this more like on the Asian side of culture. Like there are men who want their wife to be like more submissive, right? Tender and stuff, but they want their daughter like to be, oh yeah, I totally want to teach my daughter to code or like be confident or be like a female CEO and stuff like that. And I'm like, but that's, to me, that's kind of, right? So that kind of does, I think, represents a shift that in, like the future generation will be a little bit different than ours, and world is getting better. But I think it's very important to evangelize men who, and make them more aware of too, of, that's the future, and it's good. It's good for them as well. From the men's side, probably a lot of them are super anxious or like afraid of a lot of like the female empowerment talk, like a woman's, because probably in their mind it's like, okay, a woman's gonna take over my job, right? All these kind of emotional things guys go through too. And I think we also need to be aware of that and educate men as well.
Thank you very much. And in the last 3 minutes of this panel, I would like you to take the board and a marker. Sorry that we don't have time to open the floor to the public, but you all have a board and a marker. Can you just write down your model to share with the audience? To give you some time, I'm going to tell you what I want to share with the audience so you can really quickly scribble down your sentence of advice. I like to quote that time is your most valuable asset. It's actually the most precious gift you can ever give away, because you can make more money, but you cannot make more time. When you spend some time with a person, you're giving a part of your life away that you can never take back. So spend your time wisely. Anyone ready to share? No? No. Let's just give them one. Oh, great. James ready. Can you read it to the audience?
Okay, I wrote down, cultivate your strengths, be different. Okay, so to some extent, you cannot gain confidence out of a vacuum. You need to have something in you that you can be confident about. So find what you are good at and identify your strengths. and cultivated in the sense that developed deeply, okay, so that you will be the best. And don't be afraid to be different. And so I think that's the first step. Yeah.
Thank you. Amanda, you're ready?
So I wrote down focus on what really matters. I think it's something to say to myself as well. Like if you want to be an entrepreneur and then you want to do something, you do it, you try it. And if you want to be having family, if you want to have a kid, then you have it. And because I think a lot of time we are kind of in between the decisions, and that actually making us to kind of a little bit, you know, like slow down the whole process and stuff like that. So I think this is something that I say to all of you and also myself too.
I like it. Thank you. Kelly?
Okay, what I stated is dream big, and your ability is beyond your imagination. As an entrepreneur, you have to have confidence. I want to share with you my experience. You see successful story of me, but actually in the past 11 years, our company launched over 20 websites. And we tried over 20 business models. And actually, only 4 of the websites now alive. Not many of them. So what I want to encourage all of you is that there is no instant success. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you should take action now.
Thank you. We will. Jinger, you're ready.
So I wrote, don't think impossible, think I'm possible. So the word impossible is actually I'm possible.
I like it. Thank you very much. Steph?
I want to end this on a controversial note. So I think sexism is alive and real, especially in Taiwan. It's a big challenge, so my point is just not to forget that. To strive in society, you don't have to try to be a man. Please embrace your femininity, or however you identify yourself, and try to be who you are. I just feel like a lot of young women look at the CEO roles nowadays, and they have to try to imposter that. But there are so many different management styles, and trying to be like someone else isn't going to be the healthiest way to optimize what you're good at. So women, be women, and be powerful women.
That's really great. Noah?
So I wrote down my own personal mantra, motivation, consistency, and positivity. This is what I tell myself when I don't want to get out of bed in the morning and start working. So I just lay in bed, and this is what I say. So feel free to use it, everybody.
Last but not least, Adriana.
So I added 3, and I know I cheated, but we had an event last night, and I showed a video on Simon Sinek. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of him. He's one of my favorite authors and inspirational speakers. And he and I agree on you need to know the why in what you do. So really finding your passion and purpose in building your product or service, that's extremely important, because people in the end of the day will be a lot more productive if you have that passion and then investment in your company. And then your customers will also see that too. So really understand the why. Have endless amounts of curiosity. That's also personally as well as professionally. Make sure that you're in discovery mode, that you're very open-minded, that you're in exploration, because that can definitely help with creative problem solving. And know what you suck at. This is obviously very blunt, but this is something that helped me in my career. I'm definitely not a numbers person, so my first hire was a director of finance, and she has helped Girls in Tech grow immensely and has kept us really well organized. So know what you suck at.
That's really great. I wish we have more time and have more female panelists or speakers in the future. Now, may I ask all of you to stand up so we can take a group photo with your word of advice?
That was a very inspiring panel. Thank you, ladies. And let's take a photo together. Love how each and every one of our A panelists selflessly share with us their own perspective and experience and stories. Thank you very much, ladies. Thank you very much.